He revolutionized the automobile industry, but his legacy is also marked by his controversial views and Nazi sympathies. Here's why Henry Ford's story is both transformative and troubling. His story, well, it begins here. So he was born on July 30th of 1863 in Dearborn, Michigan. And it was on a farm in a family of modest means, right? So his father, William Ford, was a farmer who had emigrated from Ireland, and his mother, Mary Lydegot, was of Belgian descent. Ford grew up working on a farm, but it was clear from an early age that he was more interested in machinery than farming. He left home at 16 to work as an apprentice in a mechanical shop in Detroit, where he learned the skills that would later make him a household name. Ford's early career, was defined by a deep fascination with engines. In 1896, after working at Edison Illuminating Company, Ford completed his first gasoline-powered vehicle, the quadricycle. It was a simple but innovative vehicle that set the stage for his future work in the automobile industry. Ford's success in these early projects allowed him to raise enough capital, to found the Ford Motor Company. He founded that in 1903. But it was his introduction of mass production and also the assembly line that truly transformed not only the automobile industry, but also the entire landscape of American industry. Ford's assembly line, which was introduced in 1913, was a game changer. Prior to this, automobiles were handcrafted, which made them, well, expensive and basically only accessible to the wealthy. Now, by introducing the moving assembly line, Ford was able to drastically reduce the cost of manufacturing, which allowed for the mass producing of affordable cars. The result was the Ford Model T, which Ford produced from 1908 to 1927. It was a simple, reliable car that was priced low enough for many working-class families to afford. And by 1925, half of the cars in the United States were Model Ts. If I remember right, the famous line is, you could get it in any color that you wanted as long as it was black. Now, the Ford Motor Company grew rapidly and became a dominant force in the American economy. Ford's vision wasn't just about making cars, though. He also believed in paying his workers well. In 1914, he shocked the world by raising the wages of his employees to $5 a day, which was more than double the typical wage of factory workers at the time. Now, this move had a profound impact because it not only improved the lives of his workers, but also helping to create a new consumer base for his cars. Ford's philosophy was pretty simple. If you pay your workers well, they can afford to buy the products that you make. However, Ford's legacy is not without its significant flaws, particularly in his views on race, labor, and politics. While he paid his workers well, he also maintained a tight grip on them, using his company's power to create a strict, top-down culture of compliance. He introduced surveillance systems to ensure that his workers were adhering to a specific moral code. This moral code dictated how they should behave both inside and outside the factory. But perhaps the most troubling aspect of Ford's legacy lies in his political views and his affiliations. In the 1920s, Ford became known for his anti-Semitic beliefs, which he expressed publicly through his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent. Through this publication, Ford promoted conspiracy theories about Jewish people and their supposed control over global finance, media, and politics. His views were inflammatory. They were also harmful, and they contributed to the spread of anti-Semitic sentiment in the United States. Ford's writings would eventually draw the attention of the Jewish community and international leaders, leading to public protests and calls for boycotts of Ford products. What makes Ford's anti-Semitism even more troubling was his relationship with Nazi Germany. Ford's view on Jews aligned with the Nazi regime's their ideology, and in the 1930s he became a symbol of admiration for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi leadership. In 1938, Ford was awarded the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest honor the Nazi government could bestow upon a foreigner. Ford's praise for Hitler and his sympathies for the Nazi ideology were a stark contrast to the values of democracy and freedom that America stood for. And though Ford later distanced himself from the Nazi regime, his earlier actions and words remained a dark stain on his legacy. In addition to his controversial politics, Ford also resisted labor unions for much of his career. The Ford Motor Company became famous for its battle against unionization efforts. Ford used tactics like hiring security forces and engaging in violent tactics to suppress union activity. This culminated in the Battle of the Overpass in 1937, when Ford's security forces clashed with union organizers outside of the company's River Rouge plant in Michigan. And the brutality of these tactics sparked public outrage, but Ford remained opposed to unions until later in life, when he finally conceded to the demands of workers and agreed to a labor agreement with the United Auto Workers. Despite these darker aspects of his legacy, Ford's contributions to American industry and his impact on the global economy cannot be ignored. His mass production technique revolutionized manufacturing, and the affordability of his cars changed the way Americans lived. Ford's success helped to establish the United States as the world's dominant industrial power in the early 20th century, and his company remains one of the largest automobile makers in the world. Why does Henry Ford matter? Why does this story matter? Well, Henry Ford's story matters because he was a visionary, who changed the landscape of American industry. But his legacy is complex, and it's also deeply flawed. Ford's innovations in manufacturing and his impact on the middle class are undeniable. But his views on race and labor and politics serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and ideology. Ford's legacy reminds us that progress in one area of society can be accompanied by harmful beliefs in another. And as we continue to grapple with issues of racism, nationalism, and labor rights today, Ford was at the front of it. Ford's life provides important lessons about the need to critically examine the figures who shape our world, and also to understand that their actions and their beliefs can have lasting and far-reaching consequences. So, Henry Ford's name is synonymous with innovation, but his views and actions towards race, labor, and politics remain a dark chapter in his story. His legacy teaches us that progress must be accompanied by commitment to human dignity and equality. Yeah. So, hope you learned something new tonight, or added some depth to the knowledge you already possess. If you leave a like, a comment, a follow, a share, a question, and I'll keep creating more things that you should know by being alive, because understanding figures like Henry Ford help us navigate the complexities of history and hopefully help us shape a better future. Thanks for watching.